So, you've got something to do, something important, something you told yourself you'd start earlier this week, week, or last month. And here you are, still not doing it, still stuck in the same loop. You know it matters. You know the deadline is coming. And still, you scroll, you pace, you organize your files, you check the fridge even though you're not hungry, and maybe, just maybe, you decide to research procrastination instead of actually doing the task. Well, welcome. You're in the right place. Procrastination is one of those experiences that is so universal, so familiar, that we almost forget how destructive it can be. It's not just about missing deadlines. It's not just about forgetting to reply to that email or pushing off laundry until it becomes a mountain. It's about something deeper, something that shapes the way we experience time, the way we experience ourselves. Because at the heart of procrastination lies something intensely personal, the daily battle between who we are and who we want to become. And if you're here right now, if you're watching this, it means you've probably felt the weight of that battle. Maybe you've wondered why you keep delaying things that are actually important to you. Maybe you've blamed yourself. Maybe you've been called lazy, disorganized, or unmotivated. But the truth is this: procrastination isn't a character flaw. It's a pattern, a habit of avoidance. And like any pattern, it can be understood. It can be changed. This video isn't about quick hacks or superficial motivation. It's about going deep into the psychology, the neuroscience, and the emotional roots of procrastination. It's about getting honest with ourselves, not to shame or punish, but to understand. Because when we understand, we begin to heal. When we understand, we begin to act. Let's start by looking at what procrastination really is. At its core, procrastination is a coping mechanism. It's the brain's way of dealing with discomfort. The discomfort might come from fear of failing, fear of being judged, fear of not being good enough. Or it might come from boredom, frustration, perfectionism, self-doubt, even guilt. Whatever the source, procrastination steps in like a misguided friend and says, "Hey, let's not deal with this right now. Let's do something that feels better." So, instead of facing the discomfort, we escape it. We delay, we push it forward, and for a brief moment, that feels like relief. That little hit of comfort is addictive, and our brain learns quickly. Every time we avoid, we reinforce the behavior. That's why procrastination is so persistent. Not because we're lazy, but because we've trained ourselves without meaning to choose temporary relief over long-term value. But here's the problem. The relief doesn't last. Because the task we've avoided hasn't gone anywhere. It waits, it grows heavier, and the more we delay, the worse we feel. That relief turns into anxiety. The anxiety turns into shame. The shame turns into paralysis, and the cycle repeats. This is where so many of us live, caught in that loop, knowing what we need to do, wanting to do it, even imagining the satisfaction of having done it, but somehow still not doing it. That tension between intention and action can be soul-crushing. And if you've been there, if you were there, you know how deeply personal this struggle can feel. But you are not alone. In fact, studies show that 80 to 90% of college students procrastinate regularly. Adults do it too, at work, at home, in relationships. We all avoid, we all delay, and yet we rarely talk about it in a meaningful way. We joke about it, we meme it, but we don't confront the emotional truth of it. That truth starts with recognizing that procrastination is not a failure of time management. It's a failure of mood management. When you procrastinate, it's not because you don't know what to do or when to do it. It's because, emotionally, it feels safer to avoid. We protect ourselves from the feelings we don't want to face. Feelings like uncertainty, confusion, inadequacy. And once you start to see procrastination not as a flaw, but as a protective behavior, everything changes. It means you can meet yourself with compassion instead of criticism. It means you can start asking deeper questions. Not what's wrong with me, but what am I trying to protect myself from? Not why can't I get motivated, but what emotions am I avoiding right now? That's where the real work begins. Because motivation doesn't come before action. It comes after. You don't wait to feel ready. You act, and then the readiness shows up. You begin, and then momentum builds. That first step, often the smallest, most awkward, most imperfect step is the hardest, but it's also the most powerful because it interrupts the pattern. It tells your brain a new story. So, how we take that first step when everything in us wants to wait? It starts with lowering the barrier. When a task feels huge, your brain sees danger. So, you break it down, not just into pieces, but into the smallest unit of action. You don't write the paper, you open the document. You don't run a marathon, you put on your shoes. You don't change your life. You set a timer for 5 minutes and do one thing. Action breeds clarity. Action breeds energy. And most importantly, action builds trust. Because trust is what procrastination steals from us. Every time we delay what matters, we chip away at our confidence. We break tiny promises to ourselves. And over time, we start to believe that we're not capable, not disciplined, not strong enough. But every time we show up, even for 5 minutes, we rebuild that trust. We say to ourselves, I can do hard things. I can start. And starting changes everything. Because once you start, you realize the story you were telling yourself wasn't true. The task wasn't impossible. You weren't incapable. The fear wasn't as big as it seemed. You just needed to begin. But let's also acknowledge that sometimes the reason we procrastinate isn't just emotional, it's existential. We avoid not just because the task is hard, but because the task is tied to something we care about, something that matters. When a project reflects your identity, your creativity, your intelligence, your worth, it becomes more than a task. It becomes a test, and that pressure can be paralyzing. We tell ourselves that if we don't try, we can't fail. If we don't finish, we don't have to face the outcome. But in protecting ourselves from disappointment, we end up living a smaller life. So the invitation here isn't just to beat procrastination. It's to reclaim your life from fear. It's to stop waiting to feel ready and start showing up for what matters most, even imperfectly, because perfection is the enemy of progress. Perfection says, don't start unless you can guarantee success. But progress says, start now with what you have where you are. Progress is messy. Progress is uncomfortable. But progress is powerful. And the beautiful thing about progress is that it compounds. Each action leads to the next. Each decision to begin creates momentum. And once momentum takes over, the weight of starting disappears. You don't have to fight yourself into productivity. You begin to flow. You begin to feel the rhythm of doing. And with each step, the fear shrinks, the shame lifts, the story changes. This isn't magic. This is biology. The brain changes through repetition. The more you practice facing discomfort instead of avoiding it, the more natural it becomes. The more you choose action over avoidance, the more those neural pathways strengthen. And over time, procrastination loses its grip. Not completely, not forever, but enough for you to move forward. So wherever you are right now, whether you're watching this because you're stuck, overwhelmed, or just tired of running in circles, know this: change is possible. Not overnight, not by force, but by gentle, consistent, courageous action. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You are not behind. You are simply human, a human learning how to face the hard things, a human learning how to act in alignment with your values, a human ready to change. And that change begins now.